What's up everybody? So I'm back, and today's video is going to be another video in the series where Ken Kratz answers your questions. Here's how the process works in case you are unfamiliar. Vegas Ranger on X will send Ken Kratz a series of questions. Ken Kratz will then answer those, and I get forwarded everything to go over with all of you. Everybody's information is linked in the description below, so go give everybody a follow. Go check out the links. If you don't have X, it's a very interesting time for the Making a Murderer case, with Ken Kratz being back on the platform and answering questions that people are asking. If you've ever wanted to ask him a question, now is your chance. So we're going to jump right into the series of questions here. The first question for today is, why did you say in an interview that Stephen Avery had phoned Auto Trader to complain she never turned up, when in fact it was Steve Speckman who did that? This is Ken Kratz's answer to that question. To my recollection, I believe I was quoting a witness from Auto Trader, Rachel Higgs, in identifying Avery as having called to indicate Teresa Halbach never showed up. I learned of the other Steve from my book Fact Checker, Brenda Schuler, as the paperback version of Avery was in the process of being edited with new correct facts. I stopped quoting Rachel Higgs about this part of the case after learning of the correction. The next question: why did you try to alibi Ryan Hillegas? I vividly recalled the disdain I felt for attorney Kathleen Zellner when she identified Ryan Hillegas as the real killer. We now know her allegations were pure speculation and fabrication, but the point had to be made that Kathleen Zellner knew nothing of Ryan's schedule, including on October 31st. Here's the problem with this recklessness characterization. If Ryan was the real killer, when did the crime occur? We know it was sometime between October 31st at 2:30 p.m., last seen by Joe Ellen Zipper, and November the 5th at 10 a.m. when Teresa Halbach's SUV was found. It begs the question, when did Ryan need an alibi for? Monday? Tuesday? Later in the week? Kathleen Zellner's made-up scenario had Ryan being involved in more than the homicide on Monday, if I recall correctly. Therefore, what happens when you find out Ryan has an alibi for October 31st? I made this comment highlighting the obvious. Kathleen Zellner had no idea what she was talking about. I was not involved in the case then. I did not try to alibi anyone. I tried to call Kathleen Zellner out on her BS. The next question: what were your thoughts when you watched O'Kelly's interview of Brendan? I saw the O'Kelly video at the same time as the rest of the world at Brendan Dassey's post-conviction motion in Manitowoc in January of 2010. The state had made an offer to resolve Brendan's case to his attorney, Mr. Kaczynski, in May 2006. After a back-and-forth negotiation, it was agreed that Brendan would plead guilty to what the state's sentencing recommendation would be: 15 years initially confinement, followed by community supervision. If Mr. Kaczynski knew that a confession murder case would be difficult to win, and although he filed the appropriate motions to dismiss and pursued defenses in the early days of representing Brendan, he concurrently began conversations with me regarding settlement. These what-if negotiations occur all the time in the DA's office, and I strongly believe Brendan did not need to be convicted of first-degree murder. Wow. Nor to go to prison for the rest of his life. I'm going to read that again. I, being Ken Kratz, strongly believed Brendan Dassey did not need to be convicted of first-degree murder, nor go to prison for the rest of his life. Mr. Kaczynski wanted to provide the state with a detailed statement from his client as to what occurred. I'm sure Mr. Kaczynski wanted no misunderstanding of what his client was prepared to testify to. if called as a future witness in the Stephen Avery prosecution. It's my understanding that the day Mr. Kaczynski arranged with the lead investigators to provide the statement, Mr. Kaczynski had an out-of-town military obligation. That seems convenient. He had arranged to have his... I'm not saying he didn't, I'm just saying it sounds convenient. He had arranged to have his investigator, Mr. O'Kelly, attend the session with Brendan in Sheboygan. Kaczynski told Fassbender that Brendan wanted to fill in the gaps of his previous statements. When serious felony charges are brought by a district attorney, the focus of the case is naturally on the victims, witnesses, and developing solid facts to move forward with the preparation. Experienced prosecutors will also tell you that one eye is always focused on the record of the case in the event an appeal is filed, especially in the Avery case. My office had regular strategy sessions with members of the Department of Justice in both the litigation and appellate divisions. We tried to head off every potential appellate issue when they were identified. One such issue at the time was having accepted other videotaped detailed confession from Brendan to go along with the 5 previous statements given, but which his attorney was not present for. In reality, I did not need another statement from Brendan. In fact, I wished fewer statements rather than more. I decided to stipulate with Mr. Kaczynski and later made the same promise to Mr. Fremgen, F-R-E-M-G-E-N, who represented Brendan Dassey at trial, that the state would not offer any statements made by Brendan from the May 13th interview in our case in chief. As an attorney, like most other criminal justice professionals, I was shocked by witnessing the investigators' tactics, any of which would have rendered the statement inadmissible if employed by any governing interrogator. The manipulation and tricks used against Brendan Dassey were, in my opinion, the most egregious examples of threats, promises, and/or emotional blackmail employed during a recorded interview that I've seen in my over 25 years of criminal law practices. Wow. In my opinion, the most egregious examples of threats, promises, and/or emotional blackmail during a recorded interview that I've seen, I've being Ken Kratz, in my over 25 years of criminal law practice. He said a lot of very interesting things there in that example, that he didn't believe Brendan Dassey needed to go to prison for the rest of his life for first-degree murder, that was the most egregious example of threats, promises, and/or emotional blackmail employed during a recorded interview. That's very interesting things for Ken Kratz to say now. I don't even know what else to say. That's extraordinarily interesting. The next question. Do you believe he acted in Brendan's best interests, and were you all concerned about using that as evidence? Acting in Brendan's best interest is a question asked for those that know Brendan, not me, Ken Kratz, the former lead prosecutor. I believed then, as I do now, that entering a plea to a lesser charge was what justice required. That is, I've said this before many, many times, that is such a tricky slope. If you believe that, or if you're innocent, you believe that the right thing is going to happen. So why would you plead guilty to a lesser charge, and spend 15 years in jail for something you didn't do when you're innocent and shouldn't be spending any time in prison because you didn't do it? The only reason people do this is because they fear they're going to be found guilty anyway, or the only reason to do this is you fear you're going to be found guilty anyway, so you agree to a lesser charge to spend less time in jail instead of the rest of your life. But if you're innocent, pleading guilty to a lesser crime would be extraordinarily hard, because you're agreeing to spend, in this case, what was it, 15 years in prison for something you didn't do just because you're scared the justice system won't work in your favor. That is absolutely pure insanity. How many people are in prison right now for agreeing to lesser charges of a crime they didn't commit? I wonder if there's a statistic out there about that. It's just crazy. Mr. Fremgen, F-R-E-M-G-E-N, once again, wrote a memo as Brendan's trial began that although he had recommended Brendan accept the latest offer from the state and not proceed to trial, he believed the family was not allowing for that conclusion and were insisting Brendan proceed to a jury trial. Brendan was convicted of first-degree murder as well as 2 related felony charges, which carried a mandatory life imprisonment. I will also state that whoever was responsible for advising Brendan what he should do regarding settlement offers, insisting he should go to trial, was not in Brendan's best interest. That, of course, only benefited Stephen Avery. I don't agree, because if you're innocent, it benefits yourself. It should benefit yourself to plead not guilty and then have the facts of the trial go in your favor, and then you spend 0 time in prison for a crime you didn't commit. That, of course, only benefited Stephen Avery and his lawyers. If Brendan pled guilty and described how Stephen raped, murdered, and mutilated the body of Teresa Halbach, there would have never been a Making a Murderer TV show. Bobby Dassey gave 3 different statements in relation to his movements on October 31st. Number 1, to Dietering. He was showered before Teresa Halbach arrived. 2, on Direct. He showered after Teresa Halbach walked to the trailer. 3, on Cross, he showered after the pictures but before Teresa Halbach walked towards the trailer. 2 of these can't be true. Bobby Dassey was a chief witness and was held up as the last person except the killer to see Teresa Halbach alive. His evidence is crucial in the trial, as Teresa's movements at the time are critical to the case and the state's version of events. I think the defense also messed up here, by the way, but why didn't you pick up on this, and why is this not subject to perjury? So, Ken Kratz provides some information here, and I'm going to put it all up on the screen as well as describe it to the best that I can. He provides to investigator John Dietering on November the 5th, 2005. He underlines a sentence here. Of course, you're going to see that up on the screen. Bobby indicated on Monday, October 31st, 2005, that he woke up between 1400 and 1430 hours. He stated that he looked out his family's mobile home window and observed a little SUV, which he described as either being teal or blue in color. He stated he observed the vehicle stopped and a female exit the unit and photograph a maroon van, which his mother is attempting to sell. He stated that after the photographer had finished photographing the van, he observed her walking towards the residence of Stephen Avery. The residence is located immediately west of the Dassey home. He stated that she was seen walking towards the porch. He stated the photographer spent approximately 5 minutes photographing the vehicle. Written statement to John Dietering, November the 5th, 2005. Bobby Dassey did dictate the following one-page statement to me. On Monday, October 31st, 2005, at about 2:15 to 2:30 p.m., I got up to go deer hunting. I took a shower, I got dressed for bow hunting, and noticed someone coming down the driveway. She stopped in front of my mom's maroon van that Steve is trying to sell for my mom. I watched her take pictures of the van. She got done with that and started to walk towards Steven's house. I grabbed my bow, got into my blazer, and left. I didn't see the lady who took the pictures when I left. The SUV, a teal-colored, possibly Honda, was there when I left to go hunting. She had shoulder-length brown hair. It looked darker to me. She was wearing a dark waist-length jacket. She was skinny. About 3 to 4 minutes went by between the time I got my jacket and the time I got into my truck. I dictated this statement to Investigator Dietering. I have read this statement and initialed all corrections. This statement is true and accurate. No promises or threats have been made to get this statement. Number 3, trial prep session, Ken Kratz and Bobby Dassey, February 23rd, 2007. It looks like a copy of his day planner or a day planner, and it has an arrow there next to Bobby, and Ken Kratz continues, what Bobby Dassey told me during our prep session on February 23rd, 2007 was reflected in my opening statement to the jury, telling the jury what I expected the evidence to show. And he has a few paragraphs of the statement here. I'm just going to read the underlined parts. Bobby Dassey is going to tell you that after looking out the window and after seeing Teresa Halbach take these photographs of this vehicle and after finishing her job, that Teresa walked towards Stephen Avery's trailer. Bobby took a shower and left to go deer hunting. Direct examination at trial by attorney Ken Kratz. He has in brackets day 3 of the trial. Before I got into the shower, she actually started walking over to Stephen Avery's trailer. He has a 5th example here, cross-examination at trial by attorney Dean Strang. Day 4 of trial. What you saw Teresa Halbach do as you were looking out that kitchen window you described, or the window near the kitchen, you saw her taking a photograph or 2 of the van, right? Yes. And then you go hop in the shower. Yes. Very quick shower, you told us yesterday. Yes. 3 to 4 minutes. Yes. Okay, and the next time you look out the window, presumably you have put some clothes on. Yes. So that takes a minute or 2 or what? Yes. Do you look out the window again? Yes. And now you see her sort of walking towards your Uncle Stephen's trailer? Yes. Not too long after that, you leave the house with your bow to go hunting? Yes. Her SUV is still there? Yes. But you don't see her? No. And you don't see your Uncle Stephen at that moment? No. You are not looking for either one of them? No. You are just going to get your truck? Yes. Redirect at trial. Day 4 of the trial. Mr. Dassey, you stated on cross-examination that you believe that you saw Teresa walking towards your Uncle Stephen's trailer after your shower. Is that right? Yes. But you had seen her arrive before your shower? Yes. Did you see where Teresa Halbach parked her SUV? Yes. Where was that? Just in front of the van on the north side of the driveway. No obstruction in your view of that. This is Ken Kratz's summary of all of that. Bobby Dassey provided 2 different versions of when he took a shower. I believed the version he told me on February 23rd, 2007 at our witness prep session. 1. He saw Teresa Halbach drive up from his window. 2. He watched Teresa Halbach take photos of the van. 3. He saw Teresa Halbach walk towards Stephen Avery's house after she took the pictures. 4. He showered and then left to go deer hunting. To support that version, I ask everyone to join me in using common sense. How long did it take for Teresa Halbach to take the photos of the van. My guess is less than 60 seconds. If longer than that, she was doing more than snapping 2 digital photos. Therefore, Teresa was observed by Bobby walking towards Stephen Avery's house before the shower. One of the most important functions of the jury is to weigh the credibility of the witness. In this case, they got to hear testimony of Bobby Dassey on both the 3rd and 4th day of the trial. It was their decision how much weight to place on each version and decide whether it impacted what Bobby said about his observations generally. Mr. Strang was allowed to highlight the inconsistency and argue credibility to the jury. That's how the criminal justice system works. So those are Ken Kratz's answers to those series of questions. A lot of very interesting stuff in those answers from Ken Kratz. What do you think? Let me know. Leave some comments below. Hope you're having a good day, and I will see you again soon.